Hello and welcome to the Terp Family Fundamentals webinar series. My name is Danielle Walker, and I'm the Assistant Director for Parent and Family Engagement here at the University of Maryland. For those of you that are new, this webinar series is intended to help you become informed consultants on campus resources so that you can best support your Terp. Today, we're joined by staff in the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. Jordan is going to discuss the Multicultural Greek Council organizations at Maryland, the process for joining, and how you can support your Terp as they navigate this process. If you find you have questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit those via the Q&A feature. To access the Q&A feature, find the two conversation bubbles towards the bottom of your screen. It should also say Q&A. If you don't see that, you may need to click the three bubbles to expand your toolbar. To help us answer questions that the majority of you have, I ask that you use the upvote option. So within the Q&A feature, if you have a question that you would like the answer to that has already been asked, as opposed to typing that same question, we ask that you use the upvote feature. Also, be sure to look at the answered tab within the Q&A feature, and that'll show you the responses to the questions that have come through. We will also have a live Q&A portion at the end. So if we don't answer your question in the Q&A, we'll read it out live at the end. We'll do our best to respond to as many questions as we can before the end of the webinar. And then lastly, this webinar is being recorded, so you can go back and look at it afterwards, or also share it with your student and other family members. So just keep that in mind, and it will be available on our Terp Family YouTube channel. So please refer either to your confirmation email or reminder email for a link to our YouTube channel. You can also go into YouTube, type Terp Family, and you'll find our channel there. So with that, I will hand off the presentation to Jordan. Welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Danielle mentioned, my name is Jordan Borker. I use he and pronouns. I serve as one of the coordinators for advising and programming in the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life, where I give support to the Multicultural Greek Council and am the MGC advisor. So wanted to first touch base. We're going to talk all about the Multicultural Greek Council today, but just to get an idea of our community at a glance, we have 4 councils, and the other 3 councils that make up our community outside of the MGC is our Interfraternity Council, also referred to as the IFC, which are historically white men's fraternities, our National Panhellenic Council, the MPHC, which are historically Black fraternities and sororities, and then our Panhellenic Association, PHA, which are historically white women's sororities. So, what is MGC? Well, from the title, MGC is the Multicultural Greek Council. It is the governing body for our cultural and identity-based fraternities and sororities on campus. Nationally, most of them have an umbrella group that is there to hold them accountable, to have consistency around policies, procedure that are affiliated with some of our local organizations here in Maryland. There are some organizations that we have that don't fall under that umbrella. They might be local organizations, which means that they were started and were founded at the University of Maryland, and they don't have other organization. They don't have a national organization, and they don't have any other organizations at other campuses, like some of our other nationally recognized organizations. But they're affiliated with 3 different umbrella councils, NALFO, NAPA, and NMGC. NALFO is the National Association of Latino Fraternal Organizations. So you're thinking about our Latinx organizations, our Latino fraternities, our Latino sororities. NAPA, which is our National APIDA, Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Panhellenic Association. So you're looking at cultural organizations around Southeast Asian, South Asian, Asian organizations and identity, as well as the NMGC, which is the National Multicultural Greek Council, that doesn't look at one individual culture or identity, but looks at it from a multicultural lens. And then, as I mentioned, some do not fall under a umbrella. So, why were cultural and identity-based fraternities and sororities created? While these organizations were nationally founded after many historically African American fraternities and sororities in the early 1900s were founded with the purpose of creating safe, culturally enriched spaces and to serve the needs of the students representing multiple cultures on college campuses. While attending typically predominantly white institutions, students of color were not welcome to join historically white fraternities and sororities, and they didn't feel like there was as much connection to our historically African American fraternities and sororities. So students decided to create and join organizations to help one another persist through the collegiate experience. Most of our multicultural Greek councils started in the mid to late 1900s, and some of our organizations, even on this campus, have started in the last 10, 20 years. Our Multicultural Greek Council, which is the council over our organizations that fall under it, actually was established almost 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years in fall 23, so we're really excited to celebrate 20 years at Maryland for our MGC. I do want to point out, though, MGC fraternities and sororities are values-based organizations. They're not meant to compromise your students' values or academics. There are pillars, values, guiding philosophies that they stand for, and they provide their programming, their organizations, the way that they go about being an organization based on the values of their individual organizations. So, how does being in an MGC organization benefit your student? Well, there are a few different ways that they can benefit. Think of it from reimagining learning, right? As in an MGC organization, it gives you the experiential learning opportunities through community service and community impact, civic engagement, and project-based leadership opportunities. Think about some of those soft and hard skills that you would hope that employers are looking for when they graduate and get into their first occupation. You can do that, and you can build those in MGC organizations, in all of our fraternities and sororities, as a matter of fact. Being dedicated to high scholastic achievement, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a credit and GPA requirement in order to join any of our fraternities and sororities on this campus. And each individual organization will have a GPA requirement to stay an active member. And they're going to, hold members and students accountable to that GPA requirement. And accountability can look like providing additional support, getting them connected to other members of their organization that might be taking the same classes, that are in the same major, sharing different resources, and just being a part of an MGC organization. They're a part of the entire DFSL community. So they have the availability of our staff to be in support too. And if you don't know, our DFSL staff is quite large. We have almost 28 staff members, 11 full-time, and about 16, 17 graduate students that make up our staff to support all of our organizations and all of our members. Finally, another way that the MGC organization can benefit your student is by advancing the public good. MGC organizations have specific goals, targets, objectives to help improve the quality of life for all people. Just as an example, there's one fraternity who, on a semesterly basis, creates meal packs, and they deliver them to communities in the DC area to provide, folks who might be have some, challenges around food insecurity, and they go in, make their own meals, and then go and deliver them to people in need, just as an example. So, what does the MGC residential experience look like? Well, it's a lot different than maybe what you have commonly experienced or might commonly see in videos and movies and TV shows. MGC organizations do not have a residential facility at Maryland, right? They don't have residential houses like some of our historically white fraternities and sororities. Chapters typically stay together in houses, in apartments around the College Park and Prince George's County area. What we do have for both our Multicultural Greek Council organizations and students and our MPHC National Panhellenic Council organizations and students is the AGRA, and pronounced AGRA. It is a community space and programming space on Fraternity Row, right out on the offset of campus. It's the fourth building on Fraternity Row, so number 4 Fraternity Row. It was a old fraternity facility that now is a community and programming space for our MGC and MPHC students. So not only can they book space for free in a numerous amount of programming spaces, from up to 6 if they want to have a small meeting, to a programming space to provide a program or event to campus with maybe 20 to 40 students. They also have this space, just a community space to go in between classes, to go to study, to hang out, and just to utilize and have visible space on campus that they can call their own. There also is attached inside, they have access to a 24/7 study. So at any point they can go and access this space, a decently large size space for students if they wanted to find a place to study, if they didn't want to utilize the other numerous amount of resources and areas on campus. Fun fact too is the AGRA, although we are continuing the that it's already open. We opened it in the fall semester in fall 2022. We're actually making the grand ceremonial opening on February 18th. And we're excited to really put it out there to the rest of the community, the alumni at Maryland, that the space is officially open, even though students have been utilizing it for about a semester now. So who's in the community? Well, in the MGC, we have 14 organizations, one that is reestablishing starting in the fall 22 and continuing this semester in spring 23. We have, I believe, I was doing the math again, 9 sororities and 5 fraternities, and you can see them listed here on the screen. I won't say every single one, but you can just see here that these are the organizations that are affiliated and recognized at University of Maryland Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life. So how does a student go about pursuing membership? Well, it's easy. One, because MGC chapters don't have a formal recruitment process. Each organization has their own membership process. Their intake or new member education process is very chapter driven. And each of our organizations, depending on the organization, does it a little bit differently, where some might be pretty open about the events that they're hosting and the actual recruitment aspect of it. There are some organizations in the MGC that look at it from more of, here's some interest meeting, here's an informational meeting, which we'll talk about in a second. Here's our information, and then they go maybe through like an application process. So depending on the organization, depends on what the membership process looks like. So how does your students get in touch with MGC chapters? Attend their events. I can't say enough how important it is to for students to attend any chapter event, because that's the way that you're going to meet the students, right? You can do all of your background research of what is the organization, what they stand for, those types of things. But a lot of students join the students in those organizations. A quote in our field is people join people, and people are going to join a fraternity or sorority based on a part of who's in that organization. So attend their events, make sure that they're paying attention to some of the things that are happening in their events, and knowing any kind of requirements. There might be some events that might ask for an attire requirement, so they just need to be prepared for potentially a business casual or professional attire depending on the organization and depending on the event. Attending events give opportunities for students to get to know a chapter, as I mentioned, on campus and their members. All of our chapters have different personalities. All the members in them have different personalities, and each organization has its own objectives and goals that they want to accomplish on campus. Pro tip: encourage your students to introduce themselves to at least one member in each organization while attending events. It just can help building that relationship as they continue to attend different events and build relationship and capacity in that organization that might give them an ability to be a candidate for their membership process. So you might have heard, or maybe not, that maybe a student can't share their interests publicly. For most organizations, that might be true. Some organizations, not always. But their membership process, or MP, is typically sacred and kind of kept close to the organization. MGC members are announced through what are called new member presentations or revealed, again, depending on the organization, where they're presented to campus as a surprise, either at our Nibiru Amphitheater, somewhere else on campus, somewhere indoors, where each new joined member that is initiated or has completed their membership process and is a full active member with the benefits and rights of that organization are revealed to the rest of the community in a presentation or a reveal. But just because they need to keep their interests hidden from the public doesn't mean that they should keep it from you. It's okay for your students to share their interests and their membership experience with you to what public parts that they can. So, how does someone join? What does the membership process look like? Well, again, as I mentioned, at the University of Maryland and our Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life, we require all students in fraternities and sororities to have a 2.5 GPA minimum and 12 credits to join a fraternity or sorority on campus. Note that most MGC organizations will have a requirement that's higher than the 2.5. And good pro tip is make sure that your student goes beyond that minimum requirement to stand out, right? You want to create a better resume so that you're a better candidate when it comes to the selection process for that organization. But your students should not stress themselves about trying to go too far beyond any expectations. I mentioned some organizations have an informational meeting or an interest meeting, and this is just a chance to learn more about the organization, their values, their principles, and an application process. Not all organizations have an application process. Not all organizations have an informational meeting. They might have just general meetings where they might have a social event. They might have an event where they do some kind of community service. They might have an event where it's more about getting to know the membership and the members in those organizations. It all depends on the organization. But when I mentioned the attire, when people do have informational meetings or interest meetings, this is typically when they'll ask for business professional or business casual attire. New member education, or the membership education process, is something that, based off of DFSL's policies, that is no longer than 6 weeks. But in this time, they're going to have sessions and modules where candidates for membership are taught and assessed on organizational protocol, customs, history. They learn more about the individual members in their organization and get to, continue to build relationships through there, as well as some of those additional soft skills to help them become or hone their comprehensive ability as a student and a leader. The membership process can be intense due to just the consistent weekly candidate meetings to learn the information. Like any of our fraternity and sorority organizations, that member education process can be time consuming. You want to think of it maybe as a short 2 to 3 credit course. But they just need to make sure, and you can do that by asking questions, which we'll talk about in a second, making sure that they're managing their time well. They'll have opportunities to work on their academics during the membership process. They'll be able to have support resources on how to better manage their time, and see examples of and hear from members who have gone through that process and been able to manage their time well, and maybe give them some tips and tricks on how to do that. But it is really important to make sure that they're managing different aspects of what their obligations that they might have. So the initiation and or the new member presentation process is candidates who meet meet all the requirements for membership will be initiated into that organization, where, as I mentioned, they get full rights and privileges of being a member. And in most cases, as I mentioned earlier, they are presented to campus through new member presentations or a reveal. Again, the language just depends on the organization. So what is the family's role, right? What is the family's role in the membership process? Well, there are a few things, right? Being a sounding board, just being able to listen to your student, being a support system, supporting them through their experience, maybe through some challenges that they might have. Celebrate their wins, celebrate the things that they are doing, and console them in times of need. And finally, being a partner and being a friend through this process, to help them through their experience in joining their fraternity or sorority. So some additional tips and tricks to support your Terps: let them vent. There might be some challenges, things, or maybe they just want to just talk about things that are happening in their experience, things that they're doing, things they're excited about, things that they might not be as excited about. Sometimes learning, additional, outside of academics, might be, it might be a task for someone, where someone might really enjoy the history of the organization, the values, the different details about the organization. Understand that this is your student's experience, right? They made this decision, they made this choice, and allow them to have their own experience. And then with that, making sure that they make their own decisions. Again, it's their experience, so it's important to allow your students to make their own decisions, so they can kind of learn through the choices that they make. And then finally, your Terp should be making a decision that's based on the personal interactions that they have with chapters, not the things that they're seeing on social media, right? Some of the more surface level things, but the personal interactions, the values, the things that the organization and the members stand for, care about, and want to accomplish. So a few things for conversation starters that you can have with your student, some questions that you can ask, right? Asking what their priorities are at school, besides academics, and where does that organization fit into those priorities? Does it fit into those priorities? And I would hope to say that if you ask that question, they would say yes, but maybe it allows them to think about, okay, well, my priority is this, making sure that I choose an organization where I'm going to excel and it's going to enhance my ability to be, a better student, a better person, a better citizen. Typically in MGC organizations, their organization membership averages from about 5 to 30 people. Again, depends on the organization. So typically it is likely that you're balancing multiple priorities. You might be holding multiple roles or positions, and being able to ask that question, can you handle balancing some of these multiple priorities and responsibilities? Another thing is remembering that the MGC organizations, all of our fraternities and sorority organizations, are community and values-based organizations. So being able to have conversations with them about that as a fraternity or sorority, it isn't just about the fun, the siblinghood, the social experiences that they have. They do a lot of meaningful and impactful work for both the local community, University of Maryland, but it isn't just that aspect. It isn't just the fun aspect. Yes, there will be fun aspects. We want students to have fun doing it, but we also want them to be individual responsible of themselves, provide peer accountability, be able to do what they say or they're going to do, and be able to do those things and learn about and establish those things as they join and continue to persist through their fraternity or sorority experience. And then finally, asking how the chapter contributes to the MGC as a whole. Maybe it's not a question they thought about, and it might help them think about maybe some gaps that their organization could fill to be intentional about how they can impact and support the MGC community and the Maryland community. Just wanted to share a couple upcoming MGC events. If your student is interested in an MGC organization, most, hopefully all, of our MGC organizations will be at the Spring Open House. It's going to be next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. in the Prince George's Room, which is in the Stamp Student Union. Another event, this is a new event that they're excited and anticipating to put on, is the MGC Stroll Case. It's going to be Friday, March 31st. There still is no location or time, but any organization or any member in an organization would be able to participate in that event. So here's some just contact information. There's my contact information and my email, as well as Brianna Mercado, who's our MGC president, and in her email, anything related to MGC organizations. Finally, definitely check out our For Families page on our DFSL website, fsl.umd.edu, and you can find our For Families page.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. I have some questions that I'd like to ask, and then also for anyone who is with us and has questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A box, and I will be able to ask those to Jordan. The first question I have is, are there any costs associated with joining any of these MGC organizations?
Yes. So there are costs in association with joining MGC organizations, but it's very dependent on each individual organization. At the University of Maryland, it could be hundreds of dollars each semester to whether that is $200 to maybe $600, but it really just depends on the individual organization. And it's really important for your student that when they're having these events that they're attending for that organization, if they go to the Spring Open House, that they're asking some of those questions around the financial transparency. Most organizations, I should say all, should be transparent with what the financial structure looks like for that organization, for their membership dues, fees, things of that nature, to be affiliated with that organization.
Thank you. The next question, are there online resources for students and families to learn more about the active or recognized organizations as far as what their values are and things of that nature?
Yes. So there is all of our organizations for our MGC are listed on our FSL website, which is fsl.umd.edu. And you can go to our community, select MGC, and you'll be able to see all of our organizations there, as well as some information about each organization. On that page, you can also see the MGC has its own website, and you can click that link to go to their website. And again, they'll share more information about each individual organization, about the values, when they were founded, colors, some of the other things that make that organization unique. And finally, each organization has a social media, an Instagram page, highly recommend that. That's a really great way to see what events are coming out, what the organization has done, and get a little snapshot of what it looks like to be a part of that organization. You can find most of those by the organization and Terp. And if you're searching through an Instagram search box, I recommend just going to the MGC Terp, so at MGC Terp, which is the MGC Instagram, and you'll be able to navigate around to find each individual's organization.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is, are there any requirements for the organizations that are recognized that their members must do either annually or on a semesterly basis to stay active and recognized by your office?
Yes. So as in the Department of Fraternity and Sorority Life, we have what we call chapter expectations for all of our organizations. There are different levels of requirements, both administrative and community wellness. The main ones that I think that are important are our community wellness requirements. So each organization, each 90% of their membership is required to do programming, education, training around topics of mental health and wellness, hazing prevention, sexual assault, violence prevention, diversity, inclusion, and be able to have a minimum of 5 community service hours for the entire year. I'll tell you, for our MGC organizations, they exceed that exponentially, but our minimum expectation is 5 community service hours through the year per member. Some of the other things is making sure that they're re-registered through our student organization resource center, and having things like an advisor to support them, although we will support them from our vantage point, but being able to have them supported through an alumni or someone from a different vantage point. And most of our organizations have a national board or national organization headquarters that also supports them, holds them accountable, and is there for them as a stakeholder through their collegiate experience.
Thank you. That's all of the questions I have for today. Is there anything, I guess, missing information that you wanted to plug in before I wrap up today?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate everyone attending, listening to this. As I mentioned previously, some of our MGC organizations are fairly new. These organizations have provided so much impact to the Maryland community, the Prince George's community, and I've been very impressed in the year that I've been here with the students that I've worked with in all of the organizations. So really looking forward to your student showing interest in maybe one of the organizations in the MGC. And again, if they have any questions, any concerns, want to get more information, they can definitely send either myself or the MGC president, Bree, an email with our contact information, which is on the screen right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all for taking the time to join us this afternoon. If you have any remaining questions, please feel free to reach out either to myself in the Office of Parent and Family Affairs or Jordan or Bree in FSL, and we'd be most happy to assist you with that. As I bring this webinar to a close, I do want to remind folks that a recording of this webinar will be available on the Terp Family YouTube channel later today. You can find that by going to YouTube, just typing in Terp Family, and you'll find all of our recordings there. You should also receive an email later this afternoon with a link to the recording as well as a survey. Please let us know how we did, how we can improve, as well as any other topics you'd be interested in learning about. I enjoy connecting with our campus partners and bringing this information to you all as far as what their office does and how you can support them if they are engaging with these offices. So definitely let me know if you have any other content that you'd be interested in learning more about. I definitely welcome your thoughts. So again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.